already weathering an economic storm. What happens if things get worse? Are you prepared? And how will your gold and silver factor into the potential crisis? Well, we're going to talk about that and a lot more, so stay tuned. What do you say, YouTube? Welcome to another edition of the Silver and Gold Stack Attack. This is episode number 103. And as always, I'd like to thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to check out the new video. And if you'd like to help support this channel, then why not click on that thumbs up button, leave a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Free of charge, I promise. And I humbly appreciate all of the amazing support you folks have given the channel. So, we're all seeing signs of trouble with the economy. We have been for some time. Food, fuel, and other commodities, they're all going up. Now, have we seen the worst of it? No. We have not seen the worst of it. You've all seen the prices on the grocery shelves nearly double on some products, maybe a touch less. But one thing we know for sure, we're definitely spending more on food, supplies, and fuel than we have in a long time. And the stock market's been hammered as of late. So how does all this bode for 2023? Well, I'm no analyst, but my hope is that we move forward as a nation to curb the issues, versus all the party infighting that we've watched over the last few years. I'm just over it all. Now, before we get really rolling, let's go back into time a little bit and talk about Rome for just a second. Now, it's been said that the downfall of Rome was caused by several factors, and here are the main reasons. Number one, economic troubles. Rome was basically crumbling from within thanks to multiple severe financial crises. Number two, government corruption and political instability. Enough said. We all know about that. And number three, the loss of traditional values. Does any of this sound familiar to what's going on with our United States today? Look, folks, all empires fall. It's just a matter of when. And I think it's been said that the average lifespan of an empire is 200 to 300 years. And if we go by the date of the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. is now 246 years old as of 2022. We're not so far off that mark, so that leads us into this video. Now, am I going to preach doom and gloom about the future of our nation? No. We're in a mess. There's no doubt. We're in a mess. And recessions, if that's what you want to call it, typically last 2 years or so. But what if we're not able to come out of it and we're looking at another Great Depression? Now, there are things we absolutely can do in order to be ready for a potential economic collapse, and I'm going to give you 10 of them. Now, this isn't going to be a comprehensive to-do list of prepping or anything like that. There are plenty of other channels and books for that if you're interested. But this vid's going to give you pretty much 10 absolute basics to help get you through an SHTF situation. But there's more to do if you're going to get serious about it. And be sure to stick around to the end because I'm going to go over the importance of gold and silver in these tough economic times. So let's go ahead and scope out the basics. Now, the first basic is water. And if you're dependent on your local municipality for water, what are you going to do if a lack of spare parts shuts down the water system for a week or two? Now, if things get really crazy, you can get by on about 1 quart of water per day. But ideally, you should prepare to have at least 1 gallon per person per day for at least 2 weeks, preferably 4. More so if you have plans on a shower. And you should also consider a heavy-duty filter to purify additional water. Or you can get one of these water filtration straws. This is a decent one. This particular one's good for 100,000 gallons of water, which is more than enough to hold you for a little bit. Maybe keep a couple of these on hand per person in your family. I think the Sawyer version is $19.95 a piece. All right, next up is food. Look, in the opening days and weeks of a crisis, the last place you're going to want to be is anywhere near a supermarket because you're going to be fighting clueless nutcases, looters, and panicked people. Some very panicked people. Now, bear in mind, some of the cheapest food available on a cost per calorie basis is white rice. You can freeze it for up to 24 hours to knock out any insect larvae that may be in there and seal it in Mylar bags. It'll keep for years that way. Canned food is pretty much preferable to dry, dehydrated, and freeze-dried food because it's ready to eat. It doesn't require valuable resources like heat and water to prepare. And also because, let's face it, this stuff here is expensive. They're making a killing on this stuff in these last few years. Remember, even if the food shortages are quickly resolved, the food you store is going to come in handy if you find yourself unemployed and unable to afford, say, $10 for a loaf of bread. And one quick note, don't forget to prep for your animal family members. Make sure you have enough food for them as well. Got to feed the mutts and the pets. All right, let's talk about heating real quick. Now, if you live in an area with extremely cold winters, you're going to want to make sure you have a good supply of wood or heating oil on hand. And even if you live in warmer climates like quite a few of the states here in the South, they're subject to cold snaps during the winter months too. So you want to make sure you have the ability to stay warm. Good sleeping bags are a solid idea here. All kinds of different ways you can stay warm. Thermal clothing, all that good stuff. And make sure you have a way to heat stuff up. Okay, propane tank, little stove, be able to start a fire, anything that can draw a source of heat. All right, and you want to be able to cook your food, so just in case you don't have that ability. So heat, make sure you got enough to get through a winter. Next, we're going to talk about medications. If you need prescription medications, make sure you have enough to get through until the supply chains are restored. And make sure you always have an extra bottle or two of aspirin, ibuprofen, cold medicine, vitamins, all that good stuff. And you should always have a couple of decent first aid kits. And if possible, a supply of antibiotics on hand. Sanitary items are up next. Aside from food and water, sanitation is going to be vital. You want to make sure you have at least a 6-month supply of multiple soaps on hand, including bar soap, laundry detergent, dishwashing liquid. You'll also want to make sure you have adequate stores of toilet paper, because you remember what happened 2 years ago when COVID hit. You'll also want to keep baby wipes, paper towels, trash bags, and of course stuff for the ladies. I'm not even going to get into it. Employment is going to be our next topic. Now look, the best protection against tough economic times is your own earning power. Unfortunately, those on fixed incomes like senior citizens and other retirees are going to be especially vulnerable to rising prices, because buying power declines sharply as dollar-denominated savings and retirement accounts rapidly lose value. Now, thankfully, most people who manage to remain employed will be able to minimize the loss of their purchasing power, because employers are going to be pressured to increase wages in order to allow their workers to keep up with rising consumer prices and keep them in the position. We've already seen this happen in several sectors and job fields, to include even fast food restaurants. So keep your skills polished and stay employable. Let's talk about barter items. So when a national currency fails and the normal supply chains break down, local economy carries on and products become available via the black market. The only difference is that instead of using currency, people are going to begin trading with others for needed goods and services. So when these go bad, and boy, they have a history of going bad. Venezuela comes to mind. That's 500 million bolivars that are absolutely worth less than the paper they're on. And you get a Zimbabwe, which issues $50 billion bills. You gotta love that. You gotta love it. But yeah, you're going to want to make sure you have some proven options for bartering during times of economic distress, to include liquor, other alcohol, coffee, cigarettes, chocolate, salt, batteries, ammunition, and butane lighters. Now, I, for one, won't be trading a single round of my ammunition for anything. That's going to be the last thing to go. If I needed water, that'd be the last thing I trade ammunition for. But just keep some basics on hand that you know are going to be in demand. All right, next up, weapons. You can likely bet, you can almost put money on it, that if the economy collapses, your local police are going to be hours away. That's because they're going to be overwhelmed trying to keep some semblance of order and law, especially if you live in a large metro area. If you remember, after Argentina's economy collapsed at the turn of the century, their crime rate nearly tripled. So more than ever, protecting your home, family, and yourself is going to be your responsibility. You need to learn how to use and safely handle a firearm. Then invest in at least one handgun and a minimum of 500 rounds of ammunition, preferably more. Should actually have a lot more than that. And you want to ensure family members, as long as they're comfortable, are taught and trained on the proper use of a firearm in the event you're incapacitated or worse, something happens to you. They become the next step for protection. And if you're not comfortable purchasing firearms, and let's face it, a lot of people aren't, then make sure you have an alternative defense option on hand, such as like pepper spray, even a baseball bat, some kind of blunt object, something you can use. because the odds are good that you're going to need it. So always be ready and learn how to use these if you have not. Be ready. Moving on to cold, hard cash. It's important to remember that in the early stages of an SHTF situation, cash may still very well be king in the interim. Now might not be the time to lean on your precious metals for survival, since people are still going to believe that cash is carrying purchasing power, and it likely will unless the dollar has completely tanked, Venezuela style. Cash on hand is going to be important because banks are probably going to be closed and ATMs could be down or just flat out empty. Keep as much cash on hand as you can and as you're comfortable with to put yourself in a better position if all things go to hell. And last but certainly not least, precious metals. One of the most devastating effects of an economic crisis is the rapid annihilation of wealth. You've got nest eggs that are carefully built up over, 30, 40 years that can become almost worthless overnight and leaving no real solution to recover from a devastating loss. Now, unlike fiat currencies, precious metals are going to maintain their purchasing power, which is why many experts recommend keeping somewhere between 10 and 30% of your net worth, without your home equity, of course, in physical gold and silver as a hedge against economic uncertainty. Now, as a side note, when you run out of things to barter with, constitutional silver coins minted prior to 1965 could be useful for trading because of their silver content. And, you want to this is probably a great way to diversify your stack. Make sure you have enough of this in hand. Okay. Rule of thumb, a decent rule of thumb. A silver dime is always worth at least a loaf of bread, and a silver quarter will likely, I say likely very loosely, buy a gallon of gasoline. And that's before the prices at the pump got absolutely brain-numbingly stupid. The only problem I see with constitutional silver is the fact that with only 1 to 5% of the U.S. population stacking silver and gold, that means that up to 95% of people you could potentially barter with might look at you like you're a nutcase because they have no familiarity with the silver content of constitutional silver. And that could be a huge problem in the interim. I do think that word would get around at some point in time, though, and constitutional silver could become acceptable to the populace for bartering. It's just going to take some time. All that being said, I am of the firm belief that your precious metals are not for the economic crisis. They're for after the recovery stage. That's when they're going to become the most useful. People are going to be too busy scrambling around for self-survival to say, yeah, I'll take your silver for this precious water or bread or whatever. It's probably not going to happen. They'll tell you, I can't eat silver, I need something else, blah, blah, blah. So remember that. Cash will probably be king in the interim. Precious metals will be for the recovery stage. All right, folks, that's about going to wrap it up. Bear in mind, once again, this was a shotgun approach to prepping for economic crises. There is so much more to do than what I've covered here. This was just going over the true basics. I mean, really, truly basic steps to take to help you get through it all. I encourage you to make your own decision on how you prepare, if you choose to at all. We can't guarantee where the future is going, but doesn't hurt to be ready. That's all I can say. And the way I see it, this is all stuff I can use, all this stuff I'm prepping. This is all stuff I can use down the road anyway, so better to be safe than sorry. I have stacked a pretty good supply of food, survival food, canned food, dried food, you name it, I've got it. Water, meds, supplies, bartering stuff, precious metals. I think I'm fairly well covered with ammunition and weaponry. But, there's always something. There's always something else. So you just got to be ready. You have to prepare. All right. Yeah, educate yourself and see what plan works for you. Everybody's going to prep differently. Hopefully we don't need to go to this extreme. That would be an obvious wish, and that things recover in a couple years here and we're back to the way we were. If that's even possible. I don't know if we're ever going to be back to the way we were since COVID. I think we've changed. As a world, we've changed. But anyway, if you made it this far, kudos to you. And I will catch up with you in the next episode. But in the meantime, you already know what to do. Damn right, get stacked. Stay safe and be well, everyone. I am out of here. Peace, people.